In this video, I will be talking about the Chinese Waitress cast-on. The Chinese Waitress cast-on produces a rolled cast-on edge that is reversible that appears as two nested chains across the edge, one going one way and one going the other way. I have another video showing the Chinese Waitress cast-on using a crochet hook, but I discovered with that method that it actually produces a twisted chain on one of the chains. So this is the far side chain traveling in this direction. This is the forward side chain, and it is twisted at its base. Now, this is not unattractive and could be a desired look, but I wanted to figure out what was going on and why it wasn't open on the one end. What I discovered is that many tutorials don't quite show this correctly. When using a knitting needle, the steps are to yarn over the left-hand needle, then yarn over the right-hand needle, and then to pull a loop through. And then the basis of these instructions is Capcease's book, Cast On Bind Off. And this step is a little vague because it just says to untwist this loop. And so many tutorials show you removing the needle and then reinserting the needle. But this doesn't actually untwist this loop completely. The working yarn, when I pull it, is pulling from the left-hand side of this needle, which is actually twisted. It needs to pull from the right-hand side strand, but it's not. It's pulling from the left-hand strand. So to actually untwist this completely, you need to untwist it once more and then insert the needle. Now when I show, oops, do it again. Insert, it's twisted. It's once more. Now when I pull, this loop is open at the base. When I pull, the strand on the right tightens. So now it is untwisted. Let me show you that again. So I pull a loop through. Now I have two loops, so I have to bind off one. And this is twisted. If I remove my needle and then reinsert my needle, it is still twisted. If I pull this loose and then pull, the strand on the left is tightening. We want the strand on the right. We want it to be the strand on the right. So if I remove it one more time and reinsert one more time, now when I pull, it's the strand on the right that tightens. So what does this mean? Well, it means that most tutorials actually are not showing you fully untwisting. And when you don't fully untwist, you get this twisted base, which is the same thing that happens when you work the basic crochet method like I show in my other video. Well, how do we fix this? Well, if you're using knitting needles, this is how I fix it. I use a DPN or a cable needle for my right hand needle as a stand-in for my right hand needle. And I follow the steps, pull the loop through, bind off one, and then I pivot this right hand needle all the way. It needs to go 180 degrees, so not once but twice. Now when I pull, it's the right hand strand that is tightening. So bind off one, and I do a move to make it faster. I go under the needle and then pivot it around, and then position the yarn behind both needles again. Bind off one, I pivot under and then under again and move the yarn. Oops. All right. Under, but now my yarn's in between, so I pivot it behind. Let me come from a little farther away. Over, pull the loop through, bind off one, pivot under again, move my yarn to behind both needles. And this maintains that open chain like so, so that both chains match and they are open and untwisted at the base. Like so. Now you can do this same thing with a crochet hook. So similarly, you put the slip knot on the left hand needle, but instead of working with the crochet hook in a perpendicular position, you are going to work with it in a parallel position. And what happens is the yarn is behind the crochet hook. From right to left and over top, you go over both, but then you come up underneath the needle and in between, and then over top of the crochet hook. And then you use the crochet hook to pull that loop down. And now this loop is open at the base. So again, from right to left over both, and this can be fiddly, over both and then in between. And then now the crochet hook comes down and through both loops. And again, see that open at the base. I find when using this method it can be a little bit looser because I'm trying to have enough room to have to be able to pull that crochet hook through over both, in between, and then pull down both. And I find I have to use my finger to anchor that yarn when I am bringing it in between to kind of guide the yarn. You can see how these are a little bit loose. You can fix that by then snugging the yarn after you've made the stitch. Like so. Oops, split. So if you are concerned about your Chinese waitress cast on being as technically correct as possible and open on both edges so that it fully matches front and back, then those are the steps you need to take. Make sure if you're using the knitting needle method, you are fully untwisting that stitch. Or use the crochet hook method like so. So that's it. Thanks for watching.